Welcome to day 215 of 66 and 26. It's Friday, which means Gospels Day. We're back in the Gospel of Matthew, chapters 4 to 6. One of the things that you're going to notice about the Gospel of Matthew is that he connects well with the Old Testament. And looking to the chapters we're reading today, we notice a comparison and contrast between Jesus and those characters of the Old Testament who had failed. So, for example, in Matthew chapter 4, we see the temptation of Jesus, and where Adam and Eve in the beginning failed when they were tempted by the devil. Now the devil tempts Jesus, and he not once, but 3 times passes this temptation and sends the devil away. And then we see in the next chapters, as Jesus begins to teach his disciples, Matthew is very much intentionally comparing Jesus with Moses and setting up Jesus to be a new Moses, where Moses went up on the mountain and received the law of the Lord and gave that to the people of Israel. Jesus goes up on a mountain and teaches the people also. And when Jesus says, "You heard that it was said long ago," which means he's talking about Moses and the Old Testament law, "You heard it said, do not commit adultery. But I tell you, even if a man looks lustfully after a woman, he's already committed adultery in his heart." And so Jesus is bringing a new and revised law, actually elevating the law, making people understand that there's no way that we could possibly fulfill that law. So it always points us to the salvation that comes in Jesus Christ alone, not in our own merit or our own following the law. Well, God actually, through Matthew, sets up Jesus not just to be a new Moses, but even greater than Moses, because he is actually bringing the presence of God, not just being a mediator for God, between God and the people, but God himself in the very midst of the people. And so Jesus begins to teach. The chapters 5, 6, and 7, we'll read 5 and 6 today. That's the first 2 chapters of what is known as the Sermon on the Mount. Chapters 5, 6, and 7 are that very famous sermon. Jesus is teaching his disciples on a mountainside. "Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven," is the beginning of that. That is known as the Beatitudes. Blessed, 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 over those several verses in the beginning of Matthew chapter 5. And then very, very much giving us a renewed, stronger teaching than ever has been shared before. We're going to see next week at the end of the Sermon on the Mount, where Matthew tells us the people were in awe because of the teaching that Jesus is teaching with an authority that they've never seen before. And that is what Matthew is telling us about Jesus Christ, comparing him to every figure that has ever come before. He is the one that has been promised, and he is the one who is now here teaching in these chapters.